Hi everyone, welcome. So today we are going to be talking all about how to use your assets to actually meet the requirements for the affidavit of support. As you all know, the affidavit of support requires you to show that you have enough income to support whoever you're filing for, whether it's a spouse, a parent, a sibling, or a child. You have to show that you have enough income to support them based on your household size. And sometimes your income, right, your job, whatever it is not enough. And you may want to look at your assets to see if you can use that to make up the difference. And I will be talking about how you go about doing that, figuring out which assets, how much the assets need to be, and all the good things in between. If you are new here, I am Attorney Lillian Chipura. I am a U.S. immigration attorney, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. If you are joining me live, please say hi. I think Mr. Tuck is already in here. Hi, welcome. Always good to see you. If you have questions, you always know you can put them in the comments. I do respond to those. And if I don't see anything, I'll go ahead and get started. Be sure to say hi as you are coming in. And if you get value out of this video, go ahead and hit the like button. It's always nice to see that the videos that I'm doing are resonating with you all. So, first thing you need to know is, let's get into this topic. First thing you need to know is if your income is not enough based on the federal poverty guidelines, you need to look at what's the difference between how much you make and how much is required. And that's the difference you want to make up. Okay, so it's not that you make, let's say the requirement is 30,000, and you make 10,000, right? You want your assets to cover the rest of that. So your income of 10,000 still counts. It just doesn't meet the whole requirement. So now you have to add assets to meet the requirement. For you to use assets, though, for you to be able to use your assets need to be three times the difference. So going back to that example, if you have 10,000 but the requirement is 30, that means there's a $20,000 difference there that you need to make up. And if you want to use your assets need to be three times 20,000. So that will bring you to 60,000 worth of assets that you must have in order to make up that difference. And this is where people usually mess up, is that they think it's a one-to-one. It's not a one-to-one. So just because the difference is 20,000 doesn't mean that your asset that's worth 20,000 is going to cover that. Okay, you need three times that amount. And why is that? Because USCIS knows that if you fall into financial hardship and you need to liquidate some assets, you're not going to be liquidating all your assets at the same time. So they want to make sure that you still have additional assets in case you need to liquidate some more. All right. So they really want to make sure that your assets are enough and that you are in a place where liquidating, some of your assets is not going to make you fall into extreme financial hardship. Okay, they do want to make sure that you can continue having assets to provide for the person in case something happens. All right, so your income minus the required income amount is and then three times that is what you need your assets to equal. Now, what counts as assets? Almost anything can count as assets if it has enough value, right? Your house can count as an asset if it has enough value. So when I say if it has enough value, you have to look at how much do you owe on the property, right? How much do you owe on the home? What's your mortgage? How much is the home worth? and then how much equity do you actually have? Because some people will have $1 million house and $1 million mortgage, right? And then it's not really an asset for USCIS purposes if the house is worth $1 million and your mortgage is $1 million. Okay, there's no asset there, even though you own $1 million home. The asset is the difference between the value of the home, the $1 million, and the amount of money you owe on the home. So let's say you have the $1 million home, but your mortgage is only 800,000. Now you have 200,000 of equity, right? So it's really just a matter of looking at your asset and looking to see if there is value in the asset. Right? So having a house is an asset. However, if there's no value in it, not about what it's worth, about what if you had to pull money out of it, can you actually do that? Right? So that's what they're looking at there. Can you actually get a HELOC, a home equity line of credit on your home if that becomes a necessary thing? And HELOCs are determined by the value, right? Not how much it's worth, the actual value, the difference between the house amount and your mortgage. That's what the value is. So you really need to pay attention to that and don't let, you know, this person lives in $1 million home does not equal this person has $1 million worth of assets. Okay, because if you sold the $1 million home but you owe $1 million on it, you're breaking even. There's no money coming out of it. So that's why they want to pay attention to that. Is there money actually coming out of this if you were to sell it? Okay. Another thing people can use is their car. Right? A car can be an asset only if you have more than one. Okay. If you have more than one car, then the second car can be an. But if you only have one car, you cannot use your car as the, and you have to prove this to USCIS, right? You have to prove to USCIS that you have more than one car and which car you're using as the, right? Going back to the home, you need to prove the value of the home. If I can make that clear, you need to prove it. So you need to show USCIS what your mortgage is. You need to do some form of appraisal on the property to show what the value, what the house is worth versus how much you owe. Okay, so you need to document that. It's not just saying, "Oh, I have this house and this is how much it's worth." You have to document that you own it, you have a mortgage, and how much it's worth. Okay, you have to document all of that. Easiest way to do it: get your mortgage statement, get an appraisal, send that. For a property, actually for a car, you have to do something kind of similar. You can't do an appraisal of a car, but you can do a appraisal of a car, right? And see what the resale value is versus any loans you have. Okay? So documenting that as well. You can use your bank account if you have a large amount of savings. You can use that. You just have to show that that is savings that grew over a period of time. You can use your retirement account. You can use um, any investment account that you have. You can use this to show assets. Now, this is where people get a little confused. Your retirement account is not money you can just pull out immediately because you have to sell some stocks or move something around the other. So it's not considered as cash. So the money that's in your bank account that you can just go to the bank and withdraw without additional notice, that is considered cash, right? But money in your investment account is an investment account, so you have to sell some stuff to make that work. So because you have to do that, You have to show how much your investments are worth. So you have to show what's your cost basis. So how much did you buy it versus how much is it worth at the time that you're trying to use it as an asset. Because again, that is the asset. Okay, so this is something that's really important if you're going to use an asset. You want to make sure that you are documenting um, that asset and showing the money. Okay, USCIS wants to see the money. The embassy wants to see the money. So if you are just giving them one statement, and that statement, especially if it's a retirement account or an investment account, and that statement doesn't tell them how much it's actually worth, it's not going to be useful. Okay, it's still going to come back to you and tell you that your asset is not enough because they can't see what that is actually worth, right? So the difference between the amount you have in your investment versus your cost basis and to actually figure out what right? So it's a whole it's a whole thing that you have to really think about as you're going through this process of what an asset and how do I prove that I have this asset, right? So I have the asset, but how do I actually prove it to USPS? How do I actually document it? And that's what I'm figuring out the best way to document it. We have clients that have properties outside of the U.S. that we were able to get appraisals for and use those as assets. So if the person you're filing for, let's say you're filing for a parent and that parent has assets, the parent's assets can be used. So the parent's income can only be used if they legally, so the beneficiary, whoever you're filing for, their income can only be used if they can legally work in the U.S. Right? If they live in the U.S. and they can legally work in the U.S., their income can count for the activity support. But if they do not live in the U.S., they're not working, their assets can still count because they own that property or they own those cars or whatever it is. Um, they can show that asset. So you really want to document. I can't say that everything with USCIS is all in the documentation, and the more you can document, the more you can show, the better the whole piece is going. Right? Smoother, everything's going to go once you're able to document um, every single thing. Okay? All right. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I know that was a lot of information in like 13 minutes, but I want to make sure that um, if you have questions about using assets or immigration in general, then you are asking those questions. So go ahead and put them in the comments, and I will be more than happy to answer them. So I do see a question here. I forgot to attach evidence to my I-130. Will my case be pending? So when you send in your I-130 application, if there's enough in there that they can accept the application, they will accept the application. But just be ready for a request for evidence saying that they do not have enough to actually make a decision. So depending on what you didn't include, like marriage certificate, if you're filing for a spouse, or if you're filing for children and your birth certificates are not in there, just be ready for that request for evidence to come in and have all your information ready to go. But as far as will they accept the application, most of the time if the forms are filled out correctly, they will accept the application. It's just they can't actually make a decision on the I-130 unless they have this documentation. So they will be sending you a request for evidence for those because they can't move forward unless you can prove that the child or that facts. So without those documents, they can't actually process and approve your application. So like I said, be ready for a request for help. Be ready for it. Have your documentation together. If you have additional documentations, put them together and just wait for that request for evidence. Because once you get it, you'll be able to go ahead and send in that CIS. Since you already know you really have it ready to go forever once they do um, have that actually. Alright. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Um, I just want to talk about using assets for academic support because that is something that people don't really think about when they're going through this process. They just look at how much is on my W-2, how much is on my um, tax returns. But if you have assets or if your beneficiary has assets, you can use those. Thanks for letting me know that. So, yeah, that's really
How is that? Please let me know if that's better. I hope. Um, but yeah, just know that, you know, Mr. Toss, if you can, if you're hearing me, okay, perfect. Thank you so much for pointing that out to me because, I can't hear myself. um, oh, great. Thank you, Mary. So just know as you're going through your affidavit of support and you're thinking about what you're going to do, you want to make sure that you are looking at assets as a possibility. So if you are filing for someone, anyone, right? If you're filing for a parent, a spouse, a sibling, children, and there's an affidavit of support required, right? If there's an affidavit of support required, you want to make sure that you have enough income. And if you do not have enough income, you're looking at your W 2s, you're looking at your tax returns, and there's just not enough in there for you to meet the income requirement. You want to make sure that you are looking at assets, not just your assets, but look at your beneficiaries' assets, because that's something people do not think about, is that when it comes to assets, let's say you're filing for your parents and they just have a lot of properties that they can appraise and, all that stuff, and you can provide documentation of their assets to meet the income requirement, you can do that. So you want to make sure that you are looking at assets, and that you are making sure that you're providing documentation of assets. All right. For your affidavit of support, if your income is not enough, okay, for affidavit of support, if your income is not enough or you're not working and you really want to file for family and you're just not sure how to make up that difference, look at your assets, look at the beneficiary's assets, and that can be a whole thing that you can use to make up that difference. And remember, for affidavit of support, right, when you're using assets, your assets need to be 3 times what you actually need. Okay, so if you are working, you may only need 30,000 of income. All right, but if you're working and you only make 10,000, you're going to be having a $20,000 difference. Your income needs, your assets needs to be 3 times that 20,000. Okay. So even though your income is only 10,000 and you only need 20,000, your assets needs to be 3 times your that difference of 20,000. It's a big it's a big ask for some people, but that is a way that you can make up that difference. If you have household members that have assets, you can use their assets even if they don't have income. So assets is one of those things that you can use and people don't think about or even look at as a way to make up that difference. So I just wanted to cover that and make sure that you know that secret of using assets. All right. So I see additional questions. I have a 1 year and 2 months that I applied for VAWA and I haven't received a prima facie. I have the receipt that my case um, was received. Okay. So Brian, this is this can be normal. Okay. It sometimes is normal not to receive a prima facie right away. Sometimes they give it right away, and sometimes it takes about a year or more to even get that. But what you can do in these situations, once you're hitting that 1 year and no prima facie, you can reach out to USCIS and see um, what that if there's something missing, if there's something they need. Have you done your biometrics? Because sometimes they want to do a quick background check to make sure that they can actually issue that prima facie. And just know with the prima facie, it does not. So the purpose of the prima facie determination is for someone in your situation, if you need public assistance of any kind, most of those will require that prima facie determination letter before you would qualify. Because for most public assistance, you must be a US citizen or permanent resident to qualify. But that prima facie letter will make you qualify without being a green card holder or a US citizen. So that is really the purpose of the letter. If you're not in a situation where you are needing to apply for public assistance, that prima facie determination letter does not really make much of a difference. I would say if you applied for a green card at the same time and a work permit at the same time, what is the status of that work permit? Okay, that is more important to most people than the prima facie letter. So look at that. So basically, if we were doing a consultation, I would want to know those things to see if there's something to really be worried about. Is there something stuck somewhere? And if the prima facie is the main thing and you really need that in order to get that public assistance, reaching out to USCIS is the best way to do that. Okay, so you already have DACA. All right, so you most likely already have work authorization, and basically, sometimes when you already have a status, USCIS is not in a hurry to do like temporary things. So that may be the reason as well. So, but if you're super worried about it, you can always do that status request with USCIS. And now you can actually call USCIS hotline and ask about your case. They will ask you more security questions before they can give you an update. But now you can just call. You don't have to send a letter anymore. You can just call the hotline if you have any questions. All right. Question, Mr. Tuss. Having filed an I-751 based on cruelty and say I haven't received an approval yet and held my green card for 3 years, can I go ahead and apply for citizenship? Excuse me. Yes. So, short answer, yes, you can. As long as you meet the requirements, if you've had your green card for 3 years and you meet the physical presence requirement, yes, you can go ahead and then apply for citizenship. In most situations, that will speed up the I-751 process because, again, citizenship applications are processed very, very fast now. Right now, we're seeing between 6 to 8 months or even shorter for citizenship applications. So, in order for your citizenship application to be approved, your I-751 needs to be approved. So the officer that's scheduling your citizenship application will see that you have that I-751 pending and basically do that interview at the same time, speeding up the whole process instead of waiting 3-4 years for the I-751 itself to be processed. Okay. All right. If you have additional questions, please put them in the comments. Happy to respond to those. If not, if not, thank you for joining me. As always, we meet Fridays, most Fridays, unless unless I'm taking a day off. But we meet most Fridays and just talk about immigration and answer your questions about immigration. The last Friday of the month, which is next Friday, is all Q&A. Okay. Bring your questions. I'm going to be answering questions that people send me ahead of time, but you can bring your questions live and I'll be answering those as well. So if anything comes up that you weren't able to ask me today and you think about it throughout the week, bring it with you on Friday. You can also send me questions ahead of time and I respond to those. Okay. So Q&A next Friday. Join me the same time, 12 p.m. Eastern. And we will basically answer questions. Okay. There's not going to be like a training or anything beforehand. It's just straight up questions. So bring your questions. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you would like to work with me or schedule a strategy session with me where we talk about your immigration situation and how I can best assist you, you can do that by going to my website, lilylegal.com. Or call my office at 508-443-1788. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your Friday. Bye.